Yeah, guys. So let's get started with the third, third demo. So today, actually, I thought of covering the fundamental terminologies and also the penetration testing methodology. Okay, so this is like the agenda for the today's session. Let me share my screen. Uh, just a minute. Yeah. Can anyone confirm me you can able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So a quick recap also from the yesterday's session. So we have what is vulnerability assessment and what is pen testing, right? Difference between guys, can you hear me?
మీ వాయిస్ కొంచెం బ్రేక్ అవుతుందండి.
అదే నాకు మళ్ళీ ఇది వచ్చింది నోటిఫికేషన్ అందుకోసం అడుగుతున్నా. ఇప్పుడు ప్రాపర్గా అనిపిస్తుందా?
Yeah, that's fine now.
Okay, just let me know. Even Mutyalo, like if in case if somewhere if you cannot able to hear me, ping me personally. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so we have discussed a practical demo, after the after completion of all these things, right? CIA triad, what is information security and all. So today I'll teach you the fundamental terminologies, right, which are very important, I can say, to understand the other advanced concepts in this session. So we'll start with asset, guys. Okay, we'll start with asset. So what is asset? So asset is refers to any data, device, or other components of the environment that supports an information related activities. For an example, including the database, servers, networks, right? For an organization or when you're working as an information security professional, our responsibility is to protect the assets because they have some kind of a value in it, right? When I say asset, it could be their employee also, right? Because as in hackers, uh, you know, who are sitting outside, they wanted to, take the control of these assets, which has some kind of a value in it, right? So when I'm referring the term asset, you understand it could be anything, okay, which has a value in it. Okay, it could be a data, software, device, application, or any other component in the network. It could be router, switch, even an employee. Okay, so that is what the asset is. And then we have threat. Okay, so threat is a potential cause of an unwanted incident which may result in harm to a system or an organization. So we have various types of threats. Okay, like when I say threats, it's like attack. Okay, attacker who is maybe using uh, a malware, or performing a phishing attack, or it could be a natural disaster as well. So when I say threat which could harm these assets, you can assume like that. Okay, potential cause of unwanted incident which may result in harm to a system or an organization, right? So when you have an assets of an organization, so you have to protect them from the various types of threats. It could be an internal threat or external threat, or it could be natural disaster, right? There are various types of threats which are categorized. Okay, so yeah, when you say threats, you just simply remember that which may harm, okay, to the assets. And then we have another terminology. I think this you are already aware of, right? Which is vulnerability. What is vulnerability? Vulnerability is a weakness in a system, software, or hardware that can be exploited by the threats. Correct. So it is like a weakness, entry point, flaw in a system, network, hardware, okay, or in the network, right? So when you have a vulnerability in an asset, right, that can be exploited by the threats like hackers, right? So asset is like kind of a valuable thing to the organization. If any asset has a loophole, like a weakness in it, there is a possibility of exploiting it by the threats, right? Hope these three terminologies are clear. Guys, yeah, guys, I wanted to hear from you before I jump to the different
Yeah.
slide.
Good. Good.
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah. Then we have exploit, right? What is mean by exploit? Let's say, uh, you know, when a threat actor, when I say threat actor, he is an attacker who is trying to, uh, you know, create some kind of an impact. Okay, let's say I wanted to hack his network or a system. Of course, what he'll be looking for? He'll be looking for a vulnerability in the system. But having only vulnerability, like he won't create any kind of a impact over there, right? Or he won't be able to get into it by just having or identifying a vulnerability. He will always try to exploit it. So when I say exploit, which means uh, taking an advantage over the vulnerability. Okay, you have a vulnerability in a system. So what attacker will be doing is he will be looking for a exploit code which he can use it to take the advantage of it. So when I say exploit, it is just a piece of software, or it could be a command, or it could be a method which he can use it to take the advantage over the vulnerability. So if you see the yesterday's example, okay, there was a vulnerability which is running on the port number 80 on the bad blue 2.7. Okay, we have identified it. But when you wanted to exploit it, what we have done, we have taken the exploit code which is available in the internet, and we ran that exploit code against the target, then it gave us the uh, access to do the arbitrary code execution on the target system, right? So there are various types of exploits are available for each and every uh, you know version, platforms. So we need to choose the right one, and before we run these exploits also, we need to check if there is any prerequisites that are required. So when it comes to application security, like we have some of the payloads like SQL injection payloads. The one which we have used yesterday is a buffer overflow exploit, right? So you will find all the publicly available exploits in a website called exploit-db.com. Okay, there you will be able to find all the publicly available exploits. Even nowadays, we are also able to find these exploits in the GitHub. Some people are, putting them into their own personal blogs. Okay. Um, yeah, even there is another website called as a zeroday.today. Yeah, we have to, Google it, guys, to find if the exploits are available in the public, because having a vulnerability is okay, but if the exploit code is also available in the internet, like you and me, or like a normal person also can able to exploit the vulnerabilities, and he'll be able to take the advantage of it, right? Even when you're working in the organization, if you find any kind of a critical vulnerability, that is fine. I mean, we will start working on it immediately because that is a critical one. But which is critical, and also if it is exploitable, if the exploit is available in the internet, so that is our first priority, guys. Okay, we have to make sure that we need to, inform the owner of the asset to patch it as soon as possible. Okay, especially if it is in the public exposed systems or a server. Okay, internal network, sometimes you will have it in your control, but even if it is internal also, we have to inform them to work on it as a part of a priority. Of course, we have the SLAs, service level agreements, for the patch management team. So we have to highlight it so they will start working on it, right? So this is the exploit. And then we have a risk. Okay, when you say risk, the potential for loss or damage when a threat exploits a vulnerability, right? When you say risk, it is equal to vulnerability into threat. Okay, so when I say threat, it is like a hacker. Okay, he might be using some sort of a technique to break into the system. So how we'll break into the system? By finding a vulnerability or by exploiting the vulnerability. So once you get into the system, okay, he might uh, steal the data, right? Which could, uh, you know, create impact, uh, like for the business continuity or reputational damage, or it could maybe leads to financial losses. So all or this are the risk for an organization if a vulnerability can be exploited by the threat, right? So always we work to reduce the risk, okay, for an organization. Okay, so our priority is to help the organization to reduce the risk posture. Okay, we should make sure that we take the proactive actions to mitigate this vulnerability so that attackers may not find any um, you know entry points, so that they cannot use this exploits to get into the system, or they don't have a chance to create any kind of a potential loss for an organization. Okay, we cannot bring down the risk to zero, but we always try to reduce this risk to an acceptable level, because there are various types of risk again. Okay, known risk, unknown risk. I mean, all the areas which are may not be under the control of us. Right, there are some gray areas as well, right? From where the threat actors may try to, or the threats may come, right? So our priority when you're working for an organization is to reduce the risk. How do we reduce the risk? We implement the various types of security policies. We patch all the vulnerabilities, right? Of course. So this kind of a security best practices we will be following it, and we will be bringing the risk to an acceptable level. And the next one is attack vector. Okay, so threat actor is an attacker. When I say attack vector, the method or a path used by an attacker to access or penetrate a system. Okay, it is like a kind of a medium, okay, which he is using to perform the attack. Let's say I wanted to attack on your organization. Okay, so what I'll do a reconnaissance on your organization security policies. Then I'll create a malware, okay, which maybe bypassing, which is gonna bypass your antivirus. That malware I'll be delivering to you using, let's say, USB or a website or a phishing email. So here the threat actor has used, okay, an attack vector as a email communication or a website or a USB device to launch the attack, right? Because that is what the method or path which is used by an attacker to access the system, right? What is meant by attack vector? Attack vector is something which is used as a medium to approach the target. Okay, yeah, that is what the attack vector is. So once something happens, okay, let's say they have delivered a phishing link to you, or you have went and you have just gone and clicked on the malicious link. So as soon as you clicks on that malicious link, let's say the malware got triggered or it got installed in your system. Okay, so that is what called as a incident. Okay, an incident is basically an event that compromises the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of an information. Right? Incident is a basically an event. Okay, maybe like someone is performing a scanning on your system. That is an incident. Okay, or someone is trying to exploit the vulnerability. That is an incident. Or an internal employee who is just went and clicked on the phishing link which is sent by the attacker. That is an incident, right? So incident is basically an event that compromises the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an information. It could be a data breach or ransomware infection. Today I just got a notification in the morning, but I could not able to read that. I was I'll check that actually. I just heard gone through the headings. It was saying that 300 bank servers are down because of the ransomware attack. I don't know in which
Yeah,
country it is. It is
in India
right,
only. In
or
India,
is it in?
local banks. Yes.
Okay, that is an incident, right?
Mm.
That is an incident which has happened. Um, so attacker, I mean the threat actors. Okay, attackers have used. Uh, you know, I don't know how they are infected. The way, the path which they have used to infect it is basically an attack vector. The risk for them is basically the servers were down, okay, and the reputation is gone, right? So now you can correlate with that example, guys. Okay. So likewise, you have to, I mean, when you read such type of cybersecurity news, it is very easy to understand these terminologies and the way the hackers, the threat actors are, using different techniques, tactics, procedures to perform the attacks. Okay, easily you will be able to connect yourself to this course. Okay, so there are websites like the Hackers News, which I follow personally. Of course, even nowadays, if you Google it, a couple of cybersecurity related news, the artificial intelligence itself is pushing you all the same articles to you, right? Yeah, do that, guys. And then mitigation. So, what is mean by mitigation? So, when you have a vulnerability, to reduce the impact of an exploiting, we have to mitigate it. I mean, it is like a solution. Okay, you have a vulnerability. When you wanted to, what we can say, eliminate that vulnerability, you have to mitigate it. It is like a measures taken to reduce the impact or likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability. Okay, so that is what the mitigation is. Mitigation is like applying the security patches, using firewalls, implementing the new security policies. Okay, following the security best practices to educate the employees. All these are comes under the mitigation. So mitigation is the measure taken to reduce the impact or likelihood of threat exploiting a vulnerability, right? It is like a solution, guys, for vulnerabilities. Okay. So we should be very good at giving the mitigations to the organization, guys. When you're working as a penetration tester, let's say you have identified a vulnerability, that is fine. But how they can reduce the risk? By following the mitigation steps which are given by us. Okay, we have to go and do the proper research or get the information from the vendor and then give them the right mitigation so that they can follow and implement it. Okay, so that that will be patched. Okay, and then CVE. Okay, what is mean by CVE is common vulnerability exposure. So there are hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities are there. Okay, every year I think the number is increasing, right? But how can you, uh, yeah, sorry, but how can you identify which vulnerability is what? There should be some kind of a unique identification number. Every vulnerability should have it. Then only we can go and figure out what is it for what, which version it is, where it is affecting and all, right? So that is what is actually a CVE number. So CVE is basically common vulnerability exposure number, which is given to every vulnerability, and that is unique, which will look like this. Okay, so CVE, common vulnerability exposure, and this is the year when the vulnerability is identified, and this is the unique ID which is given to only that vulnerability. Okay, so here I have taken example of print nightmare vulnerability. This was also one of the famous vulnerability in the 2021. I think there is another one also there in 2022-23. I think you might be also heard about it. Log4j. Anyone heard about the Log4j? No worries. If you're not heard about the Log4j also, that's fine. Okay. So CVE, a list of publicly disclosed information security vulnerability and exposure, right? So whenever you identify a vulnerability, uh, as a security researcher, they will contact the number authorities. When I say number authority, it could be a vendor also. So they reserve a CVE number for that vulnerability after verifying it. So with that, we can able to track it. So if I take this CV and Google it now, only I'll be able to see the results of this print nightmare vulnerability. Similarly, every vulnerability will have a unique CVE number, which is assigned by the number authority. Even when you wanted to know more information about a specific CVE, you can go and look at the information into the vulnerability databases. Like we have the vulnerability databases like CVE details, National Vulnerability Database, right? So if you go and put the CVE, you will get the complete details about it, right? So that is CVE. Even when you use the tools like vulnerability assessment tools, those tools will automatically trigger the CVEs, guys. Okay, whenever there is a vulnerability, it is very easy for us to track and discuss, right? Yeah. And then we have CVSS. Okay, this is Common Vulnerability Scoring System. When I say Common Vulnerability Scoring System, it is a standardized framework for rating the severity of the security vulnerabilities. I mean, you have a lot of vulnerabilities. Let's say when you have performed a scan on a specific network, let's say it has given the thousands of vulnerabilities to you. So out of this thousand, is it possible to start working on this thousand immediately? No, it is not possible immediately to start working on it. Sometimes the count might go in lakhs also, guys. Okay, so out of this lakhs, is it possible to start working on and completing them in a one cycle, like let's say 1 month or 45 days? It is not possible. Okay, so which one we will start working on them? How do we prioritize is depending on the CVSS score. Okay, CVSS score is basically, as I said, a standardized framework for rating the severity of a security vulnerabilities. So we have the CVSS score starting from the 10 to 0. If something is in between 9 to 8, considered as a critical. Okay, similarly, if something is in between 6.9 to then 9, okay, high. So like we have critical, high, medium, low, informational. Okay, so we have this rating system. Even we can also go and calculate our own CVSS score whenever you wanted to do it manually, especially when you are doing the manual penetration testing. Okay, if it is network, of course the tools itself will give the CVSS score to you. According to that, we can prioritize it and we can start working on the ones which are having more severity, so that we can reduce the risk of an organization. There are two ways, guys. Most people will start working on them. Some people will focus on the numbers, like out of 1 lakhs, maybe I wanted to focus numbers. I need to bring down this to 50,000 or 20,000. But what you get out of it, it only the difference is numbers. Maybe you can project it to a client saying that, hey, you can see this is the comparison between the last month and this month. The numbers are 1 lakh to 50,000. Okay, but there is no sense of doing that. Always we have to work on prioritizing them as per the severity, and we have to reduce the risk. Okay, so I mean, okay, that is fine, whatever it is, they are focusing on the numbers. Okay, because of course they'll also expect you to do the same thing when they are paying to you. But actually, we need to focus on reducing the risk by identifying and patching the more severity ones, which creates a more impact, if in case if they are something which can be exploited, right? Even we have something called recently, I think I missed to add that over here in this slide. there is something called EPSS score, which I have shown you yesterday while we are looking at the what cvdetails.com, right? If you see the cvdetails.com, I have taken the higher EPSS scored vulnerability. So EPSS score is basically exploit prediction scoring system. Okay, so it's basically a data-driven effort for estimating the likelihood, I mean the probability that the software vulnerability will be exploited by the threats. That is very, very important, right? When you can able to identify the probability of exploiting that vulnerability, any vulnerability, the EPSS score will be high. So you can target when you're working on the VM part for patching and mitigating the ones which has the EPSS score high. Okay, yeah. So I have missed that. Maybe I can update these slides, in the revised version. Yeah, I just wanted to add that over here. Is this clear, guys? Whatever we have discussed so far, or do you have any questions, or do you want me to repeat something?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, what we have is basics of networking. This is again one of the prerequisites to get into it. As like when we start actual course, I'll be taking you through all the required, basic networking concept. Okay, I'm not covering it now. And basic Linux, uh, how do we install it? How do we use the Linux operating system? How to navigate it? The Linux structure, the file system, permissions, basic commands, and all that will also be covered over here. Okay, I'm not taking it. Let me directly jump into the penetration testing methodology, which is very, very important because this methodology provides a structured approach to identify and exploit security vulnerabilities in the network or application. So, understanding this process is very crucial for conducting a thorough and effective penetration testing, right? So, you learn this penetration testing methodology and apply it in the network application or wherever you are going to perform the assessment. So it is one of the very, very important one, right? So very, very okay. Here we have a completely 7 different steps, guys. Okay. Um, so first one is planning and preparation. It's like we are penetration testers, ethical hackers. We work for some company or a client to help them to identify and secure their products or a network, right? So first we need to plan the penetration testing and we have to prepare for it. When I say planning and preparing, so here like we will understand the actual scope. Okay, we will ask them to give a you know what we call uh, testing environment, or if it is live environment, that is also fine, and what tools to use, what kind of attacks that they are allowed to perform or skip. Okay, the point of a contact details, and then list of IP addresses, resources. Okay, all the things we will be discussing over here in the planning and preparations, like the number of resources are required to perform this, or the environment, or the kind of a tools, who owns those tools, um, like everything, like the process, timeline. Okay, so all these things we will be covering over here in the planning and preparation phase. Once this is done, okay, once the SOP is signed and all, okay, NDA is also done. Once everything is done, okay, we will be starting with the information gathering. So in the planning and preparation itself, we can actually contact the direct client. We can ask them, what is the scope. Maybe if it is network, you can take all the list of IP addresses and understand what type of assets they are. If it is an application, you can actually ask them to provide a demo with the data flow and critical functionalities. Okay, just this is for understanding the scope, and we'll be preparing for it. Once this is done, we will start with the information gathering. This is very very important part for performing the penetration testing, because the more information you gather, it is very easy for you to identify and perform the attacks. So here, okay, we spend our time for identifying the entry points. We map the target attack vector. I mean that we map all the target attack vectors, okay, through which functionality or through which network or server, what kind of attacks are possible and all, right? Once this is done, the next thing is we perform the vulnerability identification, guys. So this can be done using a manual and automated way. When it comes to network, we use the tools like Qualys, Nessus, or Rapid7 kind of a tool. These are like major tools for performing the vulnerability assessment or identification in the network. When it comes to application, we use the tools like a Burp Suite. Okay, of course, the Linux operating system as well. Then once you identify a vulnerability, we exploit that vulnerability, okay, by using an exploit code. Once the exploitation is done, once you have an access to the system, I mean, once you gain the access to the system, we also do the post exploitation to see till what level we can able to get into it, okay, to understand the actual impact of an attack. And then the final thing is a reporting part, right? Whatever the vulnerabilities that you have identified and exploited it, created an impact, capture the screenshots and put it into a report and deliver it to the client. So client will take some time. He will go through all the steps that we have mentioned in the report, like especially remediation part, and he will be asking their respective owners, or he will be working on patching those vulnerabilities which you have identified. Okay, once this patching is done, after following the remediation steps, again he will approach to us saying that, hey, we have patched all these vulnerabilities by following your remediation steps. Can you just go and perform a retesting again to see if the vulnerability still existed or not? I mean, this might take a time. Let's say after submitting a report after a month or two, depending on the time what they have allocated and taken, the retesting happens, guys. So this is what the entire process that we follow. Even attacker also follow the same thing. Okay, he might not have this planning and preparation part. He will just target something according to his motive, because attackers have their own motive of performing an attack, right? Maybe I wanted to, let's say, steal the money, or I wanted to um, damage the network or bring down the servers. They have their own motive. So to fulfill that motive, they start looking for the vulnerabilities to exploit it. So they will start with the information gathering, vulnerability assessment, exploitation, post exploitation. So once they get into the system, they will work on fulfilling their objective, okay, like stealing the data, damaging the servers and all. Okay, they fulfill their motive, and they remove all their traces, okay, like locks. They manipulate the locks, they delete the locks to not to have any kind of a clue for the forensic people, and they leave it from the system. But for us, whatever the vulnerabilities that we identifies it, we really uh, put them into a report to make this the owner of the server or a system to understand the real impact of an actual attack, because penetration testing is a simulated attack, right? Like a real hacker who's trying to break into the system, what kind of vulnerabilities um, he'll be able to find it and get into it. The same way, the same tools, techniques, we will also use it. But the difference over here is when he finds some loophole, he will try to exploit it. Okay, for us, when we find something, we will convey that to the owner to fix it before someone exploit it, right? So to become a penetration tester, you should have that mentality of a real hacker. Then only you will be able to think like him and you will be able to find the vulnerabilities and exploit it. Clear? Any questions here? Yeah, guys. Any questions?
What tools they were using to identify these vulnerability identifications? Like you said, Rapid7, uh, Nessus,
Qualis.
Qualys.
Hmm.
So these are open sources or paid?
No, they are paid tools actually. Okay.
Okay.
Attackers may not use such type of a tools. They may have their own tools or they may have their own uh, you know scripts which are designed for us as a enterprise. These tools give visibility to perform the scans on our assets. I mean, identification of assets, performing the scans on all these assets. Because this approach, VM approach, is a proactive approach, which is completely control of an organization itself, right? So, if I wanted to show you one example how these tools will look like, uh, okay, let me show you. You will actually get to know how organizations will track all their assets, all the vulnerabilities and all. Okay, how this prioritization happens and all. Okay, you will understand it. Give me a minute. Let me log in into the console and I'll show you. I have a demo environment where I have deployed a couple of these Qualys agents. They are always performing scans every day regularly to give the latest vulnerabilities to the console. Okay, so I'll just show you that. So copy the link. Yep, I'm sharing my screen again with this tool. Yeah, can you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a cloud-based Qualys platform, which is a trial version, guys. Even I can also help you to get such type of a trial version to practice. So what we do is once we finalize the what we call the session and all, we will divide this task and we will do it. Okay. So this is a cloud based Qualys platform. Let's get into VMDR, which is vulnerability management and detection response module. So yeah, if you click on vulnerabilities, you can see all the vulnerabilities are here. These results are belongs to only 2 devices which have deployed part of a testing. Okay, so here it shows all the vulnerabilities, guys, with the severity wise. You can see this is what the severity wise. Okay, suppose if I wanted to wanted to know more information about a specific vulnerability, I can click on it and it will give complete details about it. Like this is in 7-zip platform. I mean 7-zip, I think you know, right, which we use it for extraction purpose. Okay, it is an application which is heap-based buffer overflow vulnerability identified 12 hours back, which is active, and this is a QID, which is Qualys ID, which is a unique ID for identifying only this vulnerability, which is belongs to this particular CVE. As I said, right, every vulnerability will have a CVE. Now, even if you send this CVE to someone, they will understand that you are talking about the 7-zip vulnerability. You can see if I open it in the NVD, like National Vulnerability Database, you will get the details of it. Just wait, antivirus is there, it is scanning every link before I clicks on it, so there is a delay. Are you able to see this? The NVD
Yes.
page, which are, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see it is with the 7-zip. Before 24.0.1 version has this vulnerability. And CVE, okay, this is CVE, right? CVSS score is not yet calculated and given, okay? And you have a reference links over here. But of course, here we will have a CVSS score, which is in Qualys we have 0 to 5, okay? So of course it is a high, and it will also tell you from where it got identified in the target system. What happens is sometime after identifying such issues, when you're reporting to them saying that, hey, your system has a vulnerability, they're like, I'm not using 7-zip. I don't know how come it came. I mean, there are people who denies it when you report it when it comes to security. You can tell them navigate to this path, you will find this over there, right? What is the mitigation? Upgrading to the latest one. Vendor has already released a patch to upgrade it to the latest one. We have to upgrade, or else there is a chance that someone can exploit it if the exploit code is available in the internet, right? So you have all the details over here, guys, in this tools itself. So I mean, the organizations will procure these tools, okay, with the required licenses, and they can give you an access to you. So our responsibility is to deploy this in all the assets, perform the regular scans, generate the reports, prioritize them, and share it with the patch management. I mean, this is what we work as a vulnerability assessor. But exploiting these vulnerabilities is penetration testing to understand the actual impact. Right? There are a lot of vulnerabilities, right? We can categorize it, we can prioritize it. Like I want to see only severity 5 vulnerabilities. You can see all the severity 5 vulnerabilities over here. I can create a good dashboards also over here. As of now, I haven't created anything. Okay. But in the organization, when you're working, you can create your own dashboard according to the client requirement. Automatically, it will give you very stylish information like missing patches by vendor. Okay, most of the patches are belongs to, let's say, Java. So I'll ask the patch management team to first work on Java to reduce it, or else I'll first prioritize them. Okay, uh, we have a VMDR license. I'll select the assets. They are cloud agents. Okay, I mean, you can prioritize the assets according to your criticality of the assets as well. You can also give the tags to every asset and you can start work on them. So as of now, I have given 2 assets. Out of that, there are 107 vulnerabilities with this critical high and medium, all the CVSS score. Let's say I wanted to focus on which are actively exploited or easy to exploit it. Okay, easy to exploit, active attacks, and unauthenticated ones, because hackers will they are sitting outside, right? They may not have the credentials to do it. So I can prioritize this. I can prioritize this, by giving the real-time threat indicators. Then I'll click on the prioritize now. So it gives this list of prioritization for us, right? You can see if you have the patch management tool procured, you can directly click on here and create a patch job as well. But organizations may have the different patch management tools teams which are managed by the um, what we call a server ops team or operations team or patch management team. So they take care about it, right? Understand? So here you can see patch now, right? Patch now. But we don't have a license to do that. But I'm just telling you, if you have a license, we can do that. Out of so many vulnerabilities, we have prioritized them, and now here is a list. And the good thing is, here you will only get the solutions, guys. Right? Identifying is okay. Solution also it will only give you. Like if you go to patches, you can see it telling you go and use these patches and deploy it. Okay, is it clear? So how to use this tool? What is a VM process? What is a PT process? Okay, so these things, of course, we'll be starting from the basic, and you will understand it. You will be more comfortable, by end of this course, to use all these tools and techniques. Yeah, guys. Uh,
And
yep.
yeah, once we implement of that one, after that we have to close these tickets, right, in the VMDR.
Yeah, it is not tickets, I can say. I mean, you have to highlight it. Maybe there is a chance, you can also import this as a part of a tickets and assign it to the right product owner. So they will start working on it. Your responsibility is to track them. Okay, and once they patch it, run the rescan and confirm whether the vulnerabilities have patched or not. This is when
So
it
these
comes to
are all
VM.
okay. So as you are telling about it will be breach SLS, right? If you can't able to handle that vulnerability issues, so that tickets means whatever you are showing here that will be breach the SLS, right? Based on the priority.
Exactly. But we are not bothered about it. We are there to identify and help them to patch it. It's their responsibility to patch it. I mean to say, SLAs are applicable to the patch management team. Our
Okay.
responsibility is to first highlight them, okay, and as soon as you report it, they will start working on it. From there, the SLA starts. That is also again depending on the type of an asset, okay, which are like very critical assets. The SLAs are like very strict. If it is workstations or like normal systems and all, you might have very strict SLAs and all. Depending on which project you're working, if you're working on servers and all, so you will have such type of SLAs and all, right? So yeah, any other questions?